James, welcome back. How have you
Well,
been?
thank you. Hey, I've been great. Yeah, this pandemic has been interesting, but I'm glad to be here. How about yourself? How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm so glad that you could join me just for a discussion that I think is so necessary during this time. Just talking about advancing in your career and
Yes.
um, and really increasing your income, not just increasing it, but how do you get to six figures, right? And
Right, right.
um, I
Yeah.
think in the midst of this pandemic and everything that's going on, you see articles and news that say things like the job market is down and people are out of work and I'm sure yes there are a lot of people that are out of work and I feel for them. On the
Right,
flip
right.
side, um, I see a lot of people actually transitioning in their careers, actually
Hmm.
taking time during this time where they've been able to maybe have more time to reflect or be a little more introspective during COVID and things have slowed down for them, right? To be able to think like, I want to change. I want something different. Am I in the career field that that really aligns with my skill set, my purpose? Am I being valued at the level that I believe I should be? And they've had an opportunity to not just be busy, but to really think about what they really want to do. Have you seen that as well?
Absolutely. I've seen that a lot. Just not only with peers of mine from the company that I work for, but also in family, friends, relatives. I mean, people are impacted by this pandemic, and I think that what's been more eye opening is that people are having more time to think about where they're really at in their life. And I think that this is a time for reflection for a lot of people to say, hey, is this really where I want to be? Am I happy with my career? And I'm starting to see a lot of shifts, as far as in people just going from one career to another career that's totally opposite. So you're spot on with your observation, your take to it. But yeah, these are exciting times, and I think that this is where people are asking those questions. Hey, what do I do? What is my next step in my career? Hey, if I want to get into a management position, how do I take that next approach? So this is definitely needed, and people are yearning for this type of information for sure.
James, I love what you said. These are exciting times. And I just
Yes.
wanted to drill that in because these are definitely exciting times. When you look back in history, even the recession of like 2008, all the list of businesses that came out of that recession, that's when there is a problem, I think that's the only time that you can come up with a solution or be creative. When things
Right.
are status quo, there's no reason for anything else. And I like another thing that you said about people are yearning for more and thinking about what they should be doing, even thinking about their family, right? Like, uh,
Hmm.
does this position that I'm in or does this role that I'm in serve me in my long-term goals, in my
Right.
family goals? Like, am I able to sustain my family, not just financially, but do I have time for them,
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, that's so awesome. And so, uh, for the listeners out there, I think if you fit in any of the following these categories, I think that this podcast today, this YouTube video, whichever platform you watch it or listen to it on, I think it will help you if you're in one of these categories. Um, Number one, you're looking for a change in your career, and you're just like, how do I go about doing that, right?
Hmm.
Secondarily, maybe you feel like I want to make more money. Like I need more money for my family. I feel like I need to, get to the next level in my career, and I'm not sure, how to do that. That's another area. Um, how do you develop personally, even in the role that you're in, so that you can maximize your potential and maximize your results by developing yourself in such a way that you can contribute more. Because the important thing, no matter where you work at, whether you're a business owner or you're working for an employer, is to add value wherever you're at. And so we won't be able to go into depth with all of these areas, but I think we're going to be able to touch on each of these topics and just give you a sense, an idea of how to grow in your career and ultimately get you on the path to making more money. So if you're salary wise between the salary of maybe 40 and 70,000 or whatever, right? And you feel like I need to get to that next level. I want to get to six figures. How do I do that? Guess what? Anytime you go to the next level, it takes work, right, James? Like
Oh yeah, absolutely.
it
Lots of
takes
work.
work. And so James and I want to take a moment today and just be transparent, share a little bit about our experience just on our journeys in our career in hopes of helping you break through any glass ceiling that you're at or break through any barriers that you have to your success in your career. Because guess what? These are exciting times. There's greatness in you, and you can achieve more than what you're achieving now. It's not that you're not doing well, but guess what? We can all do better. And you're watching or listening to this because something in you feels like, I want more. I want better. Um,
Yeah,
so, so James, I understand that you right now you're in project management, right?
absolutely. Yes.
And so
I'm in
prior to
project.
that, weren't you were was it a warehouse or manufacturing plant?
Yep.
Uh, Tell me about that experience.
Yeah. So, Cher, it's so funny because, when I started my career off, because I'm originally born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, and that's where people out there that knows me, the tone as we call it, and my first real job was at this manufacturing plant, and they made these air control pressure systems for like transportation companies. So the 18 wheelers you see,
Hmm.
where they pump air into the tires, they basically created those air control pressure systems. So I was in that manufacturing plant, and it was very different because the kind of people that I was kind of dealing with were like, people who had a viable vehicle, people who could just make it in on time, and they didn't have a felony. So when I went in, I'm like, oh, okay. So I was in their operations, but the scenery of the manufacturing plant wasn't even that beautiful, right? So you just go in and all you see is like steel materials, like sad faces. It was it was like a picture of The Walking Dead in there, like, oh my goodness, I don't want to be up in here. So that's where I really started my career off, and I realized at that time that this is not what I really want to do for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
And at this time, I was in between in college in Ohio, and I was interning there at the company in the manufacturing plant, and I started learning about this project management because I was in project management for them, and so I got Lean Six Sigma certified, and I decided to get my PMP certifications, and I said, hey, you know what, the heck with this, I'm actually going to do a shift, and decided to officially move to Ohio in '09, and that's when I started my career off in project management. So yeah, for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
I remember I started off in fast food, and one of my first jobs was working at White Castle.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, I
Okay.
worked at White Castle. I actually worked there for 8 years. After a few months of working there, I got promoted to a supervisor, then a manager, and I could have moved up to like assistant general manager and things like that. But I got to the point where, just like where you said, where you felt like this is not what I want to do. And I
Mhm.
remember distinctly one day, uh, I came home from work after working a long shift because anybody that's worked in fast food or retail, like, the
Oh,
hours are crazy. Okay.
crazy.
They are super crazy. And as a manager, if the turnover is sometimes high at some of the restaurants or whatever, you need to stay over if somebody calls off to make sure the shift is covered. And so there were times where I would stay over for like two whole shifts, and then go home and just be tired. But anyway, it was one of those days where I was like super tired. I had worked maybe like a double shift or whatever. And I came in and took my shoes off, and I looked on the floor beside my shoes and at the front door, and I saw like little onion particles on the ground or on the floor in the house. And I was just like, I'm tired of seeing these little onion particles fall out of the bottom of my shoes. Yeah. Well, because when you work in fast food, James, I don't know if you've ever worked in fast food, you
Oh
get
yeah.
these, you have to get these shoes. They're called
Mm-hmm.
shoes for crews, and they're slip
Mm-hmm.
resistant. And so you got to be
Yep.
safe. And so they have all these patterns on the bottom. And so, all the
Yep.
little onions at White Castle, right? Like they would get stuck in the bottom of the shoe and they would dry and harden. And then when you would walk in your house, the
Yeah.
flakes would just,
Yeah.
fall all
Paul.
over. And so I had to wear, like a shirt that was branded by, White Castle. I had to wear a hairnet. I had to just, be in there with the outfit, the black khakis, and most
Yeah.
of all, I would come home smelling like onions. Okay, you know that smell when you walk inside of
Oh yeah.
White Castle. It's
Smell.
woof, right? Imagine like coming home smelling like that every day. And so one of those particular days where I came home and I was smelling myself, smelling like onions. The onion particles were on the floor. I looked at the shirt, the logo brand of White Castle, and took my hair bonnet off, and I said, "This isn't me. I need something different." And I had that same moment that you had, like, if I'm going to, do something else, I need to get another skill. I need to learn something. And that, I think, James, that is such a huge pivot. Like we had the same kind of story where you said, wait a minute, I want to do something different. And I can't just go and jump out there and do something different without preparing myself, right? You got
Exactly.
Lean Six Sigma certified.
Yes.
You got your you didn't say PIMP, did you? You said
Yeah.
PMP.
PMP. Yep.
Okay,
PMP.
just
So,
making
yeah.
sure.
Right. Yep.
You got PMP certified. And so
Mhm.
for me, I still at that point didn't know what I wanted to do. All I knew is that I did not want to go home smelling like onions every day. And
Right.
I wanted to make more money. I wanted to have a bigger impact. I wanted to feel like I was operating my purpose. And so I was thinking, like, what do I want to do? And so I ended up getting into the tech field. So I started working on a degree in networking initially, network
Mhm.
systems administration. And
Mhm.
as I got into network systems administration, working on my associates, I realized, like, I really, really don't want to do this. But I made a
Nice.
commitment. Yeah, right. But I made a commitment to myself. I said, I started this and I'm going to finish it.
Yeah.
And so I went ahead and continued in the program. Um, and I ended up graduating, with my associates in that field. And then I went right back to get my bachelor's in technical management with a specialization um, in networking. Even
Mhm.
though I did not know a lick of networking, literally, I
Wow.
met my husband in college as well too. So, and he actually knew the networking stuff. So I
Okay.
leaned heavily on him for his help to help get me get me get me
Right. Push you through. You should
push
do
me through.
it.
Yeah. And so at any rate, yeah, I graduated in that and then segued into my field. And so in thinking about like your history in, like the warehouse industry, my history in
Yeah.
like fast food, and we had to pivot. We had to pivot our mind and learn something different. And I want to make a
Yeah.
statement here. I don't believe that everybody needs to get a degree. Like in today's society, you may not even have to go to college. Maybe if you need to pivot your mindset and learn something, learn a new skill, or get some more knowledge. There's so many courses and certifications out there, which we can get into a little later. But I just wanted to add that note right there because yes, a college degree is good and it can be valuable,
Hmm.
but it's not always necessary. College is not for everybody. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to make sure that you knew that there's other options to gain experience, exposure, and knowledge and
Hmm.
certifications and things like that. But
Right.
James, thinking about your history and you transitioned into your role in project management, what were the differences between how you had to interview for the warehouse versus how you had to interview for the role you're in now?
Right. I mean, that's a great question. And just thinking back on it, I remember when I first went into my first interview, my boss, he came in with like some khaki shorts and like a plain shirt, and I'm like, oh, and I'm like all in a dress suit, right, in a manufacturing plant. He was
Hmm.
like, hey, what's going on? I was like, oh well, and so in that environment, it was just questions like, "Hey, do you have a viable vehicle? Hey, what intrigued you about the position?" It was just like real typical questions, like you're talking to a friend, like, "Hey, who a person that you're getting to know." So it wasn't really anything out there for me. But I'll tell you, when I decided to transition from the manufacturing plant into retail, and obviously now I'm in IT as yourself, the questions were a little bit more different.
Hmm.
And the questions, and obviously I'm not going to go through all of them, but just a few, just some of the things that I was realizing, like, whoa, okay, they're really asking me questions about leadership, about behavioral questions, about how would you handle yourself in this situation if this
Hmm.
was a peer. How would you handle this if somebody that's a direct report to you, someone that's reporting into you? So it's a total mind shift for me. And at that time in the manufacturing plant, they just never taught that. And I knew
Hmm.
that's where I needed to shift. But to be honest with you, just to kind of take a step back, like you were saying about just trying to figure out your purpose. I was trying to figure out my purpose. I was just trying to figure out, okay, where do I want to go? Okay, how much, like the field that I want to get into, how much impact can I have going into that field as well, while still, providing for my family and doing the things that I love as well. So those were some of the things that I was figuring out, and it was just trying to build myself up to. So that interview process was totally different. And from the first interview, it was one person. When it was going to like leadership positions in project management, it was a board of people. And it's like 3 to 5. I've had one time 7 people in here. I was like, what in the world? Like, oh, I didn't know I was interviewing for the president of the United States role here. Okay, let's go. So that was a little bit different for me. But let me ask you though, because obviously you're in a successful role, and I know you just didn't roll out one day and just become a director, right, of where you're at now. Because if you did, you got to tell me that secret, right? So you got to tell all of us that. but
Right.
but no, so what was the difference from going from White Castle, because obviously that's fast food,
Hmm.
to now you're going for a more professional type of position? So what was the difference that you saw in the interview process and the growth as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the things I noticed is that different environments have different expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And while I enjoyed working at White Castle, making the burgers. I think when you have good character, I think you can do well anywhere, and you try to give your best effort everywhere. So at White Castle, they had processes for how you put the burgers on the grill. Like you don't just put them on a certain like your own way. There is a framework, a process for
Wow.
how you put the burgers on the grill. There's a process and a framework for how you clean the grill. There's a process and a framework how you make the egg sandwiches. I mean, everything. And so I wanted to make sure that I was following their process, doing the right thing, and all of that stuff. And so when I first got hired there, when I got interviewed, I actually I didn't even have a car at the time. I walked, and the White Castle was kind of across the street from the apartment complex that I was living in at the time. I walked in, and the lady, asked me, pretty much the same thing as you, like, did I have transportation to work? Why did I want to work there? And maybe like 4 questions. And I think I got hired almost on the spot. And so coming in there, learning their frameworks of how they made the burgers and cleaned up and, worked the drive through. I ended up getting, because I had that zeal and that, I guess, the work ethic that showed that I wanted to succeed there. And so I was, moved up, pretty early within a few months to supervisor and then manager. And in that, I think I learned that system, in and out. And I didn't really have to grow and develop a whole lot. I just needed to make sure I maintain what they had, like all of our paperwork, our P&L, our profit and loss statements that we had to do, the inventory that we needed to do for the food. I mean, there were some technical things and managerial activities that I had to do there, but I really didn't need to push or challenge myself, if that makes sense. Like it was just like I could do that job well in my sleep, manage the shifts, all that with the hours and all that stuff. And so when I transitioned into the IT arena, before I even was, promoted several times to where I'm at, um, it was like a shocker to me. Luckily, I had that work ethic ingrained in me, even, from White Castle, because I believe that we all have transferable skills, no matter where we started off at, no matter what role you were in. I believe that you can extract something that can take you to your next level where you can kind of say, no, I wasn't working in IT. But however, here's what I was able to do that was similar that can prove that I'm able to learn new things. And so when I interviewed for the well, not the position I'm in now, but just to kind of get my foot in the door, I needed to know about the company, like right, like some about their history to show that I've researched them and that I was interested. I needed to tell them, how I would go about learning their products. I needed to answer behavioral questions just like you. I needed to be able to demonstrate, that I was self-aware of, who I am and what my strengths, my weaknesses were. I needed to be able to pitch myself and be able to explain concisely who I am, what I do, and why I'm the best person for the role. And by nature, I wasn't used to like talking about myself, right? Like being able to say, here's how I can sell myself, And so it was an entirely different experience, and it caused me to realize that I definitely needed to grow and develop. And I'll be transparent, it was uncomfortable. I felt like I didn't belong when I first got there because I got hired in and I felt like, am I going to be able to sustain this role? Do I have what it takes? Have you ever felt like that, James? Like,
Oh, I felt
even
that
though
way.
even though you get
Oh.
there, you have, what do they call it? Imposter syndrome, where you feel like people are going to find out that I'm a fraud, that I don't belong here, that I'm not, like, because in your mind, you
Yes.
told yourself that, and I'm jumping ahead of us because I know we're going to talk a little bit about the mindset or whatever, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's crazy that even when you break out and you transition to something different and you are stepping out into what you want to do, this right here, your mind
Hmm.
um, can play tricks on you.
Oh, you preaching to the choir here, right? I mean, and I think the famous quote that probably every person has heard about fear, right? Is
Mhm.
false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
And it's real. I mean, and it seems like it's real in our minds because when you're going from White Castle, when you're going from a manufacturing plant that may not necessarily require a lot of your capacity, and to step into a different arena that now requires heart, mind, and work ethic to it, right? It is uncomfortable. It's like working out. It's just like
Hmm.
working out. If you've never worked out, when you first go in the gym, it's like you're gonna feel that pain. You're gonna feel the pain. You're gonna be like, "Whoo, this is very exhausting," and you don't want to go back anymore because you're in pain. You can hardly sleep because there's times where it's hard for me to roll over. I'm like, "Oh, my leg hurts,"
Yeah.
right? But it's about pushing through. And
Hmm.
and you're absolutely right. The expectations are totally different in the different environments that you're in. Because I can tell you from coming from the manufacturing plant into the new arena, the expectations were different. They expect more of you, and so obviously I know we'll get down that
Yeah,
road,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, for
So
sure.
I got another question for you. So one of the things that I was thinking about is So I wanted to pivot. I wanted to transition a lot sooner than I did
Mhm.
from White Castle, because I had in the back of my mind, and it took me so long to get up I don't know if it was the courage or the determination, the drive, or maybe the know-how, maybe a combination of all that, get over the fear, the doubt, um, to really be able to take a step in that direction. So I'm willing to bet that some of our listeners may be in a position where they feel like, I know I want something different, right? But I don't quite know how to get there. How did you push past that barrier when you wanted to transition? And what was it, a long period for you where maybe you vacillated for a while thinking like, I want to do this, and then kind of like people jump double dutch and kind of almost
Right.
jump in, and then finally they get in. Did you have that
Right.
same experience, or did you just, as soon as you decided that, you just went for it?
No, you know what? I think that most people have that. And I had that as well. It took some time. But the one thing, Shara, that I can tell you that I never did in any career move or any decision or major decision in my life, I've always run it by mentors. I've always had mentors there, people there to run and bounce ideas off of, to say, hey, look, here's what I'm thinking. You've known me the longest. So when I was transitioning from the warehouse into project management, I mean true project management. I did have a mentor down in San Antonio that I ran idea by, to say, hey, look, this is the path that I'm thinking, but I just want to make sure, because you know me, I know a little bit about myself, but I'm still trying to learn more about myself. What do you think? And he helped guide me down that path, because obviously he was very successful. He was in the educational system, light years ahead of me, and I was like, okay, wow, this is good. So when he walked me through that path as well, it took a couple of months. It took some time. Now I just knew from the project management perspective, it was very lucrative. It was just very lucrative. And so I knew what I wanted to do. So once I figured out, okay, hey, this is the path that I want to go down, I just jumped right into it. Now it was just deciding, okay, do I want to do it in IT? Do I want to do it in retail? Is it in distribution? There's so many ways of what project management represents. So that was the path that I went down. But even going down that path, Shara, there was a lot more to it than just deciding, right?
Right,
There
right.
was a personal development plan I needed to have, and that's what my mentor actually taught me, was how do you develop a personal development plan that's ever evolving, but it touches on the most important, as I call, the four cores of your life. And so when he opened my eyes to that, that's when I can tell you, from the manufacturing to project management, and just it just soared after that, from that point. So that's what happened to me in my transition as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's so you hit the nail on the head again, James. Like you're like right on track. A
Mhm.
personal development plan. I love that you mentioned having a mentor, because so many of us are lone rangers, and myself included. So for the longest, I felt like, because naturally, I think I pick up on things pretty quickly.
Mhm.
I research things on my own. If somebody says something that I don't understand, I don't mind asking a question, but I'll go and research it myself so that I can understand it for myself. And so I never felt like, at least early on in my career, that I really needed anybody to mentor me or give me guidance, or what have you. And as I grew and developed, I realized that no, 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 like you need
Yeah.
somebody, and you don't know what you don't know. And so you can research all the things that you think you know, but there's still something that you don't know. And the
Right.
best way to get to where you want to be to is to link up and connect with somebody who has already done what you're doing, or they're on their way, and you guys can kind of leverage ideas and thoughts and progress off of each other. And when I think about my personal development plan, I actually jotted down 6 things that I'm going to just recite, just because I think it's so important for the listeners. Like if you you know, everything that we said resonates with you, and you realize that, you know what, I want more, but maybe I don't know how to get that. Maybe I want to transition, but I don't know what to transition to. Or maybe you're in transition and you realize that, okay, there's some things that you need to develop. So a first thing is, you know, in personal development plan, this is what it looks like for me. The first things first is becoming self-aware. Like, I had to get to know me. What were my weaknesses? What were my shortcomings? What did I do well? What were my strengths? And try to build up on my strengths, but be very aware of my weaknesses and blind spots. So I didn't believe that I knew everything, because there was a point where I honestly felt like, I already know that. I already know that. I don't want to hear anybody. And I'm just being transparent because maybe some of the listeners feel that way as well. Maybe you do know quite a bit, but you never know everything, and you never know so much that you can't listen to someone else. And so becoming self-aware, I think, is so critical. Getting out of your comfort zone. I had to get out of my comfort zone. We all get in these boxes where we feel like, well, I'm safe here and I'm succeeding here. And even though you may be comfortable there and you may have some success there, if you stay in that spot, you cannot get to the next level. I was in a workshop some years ago, and one of the speakers was talking about where growth takes place, and they drew a diagram on the whiteboard with like a little small circle that had the comfort zone in it, and then outside of that, a bigger circle that said the uncomfortable zone, and then outside of that, an even larger circle that said the panic zone. And what she said was, real growth and transformation takes place at the edge of the uncomfortable zone, teeter-tottering on the panic zone. So if you are not at the place, or you're never at the place, or you never put yourself in the position to feel like, oh my gosh, this is too much, you're not growing, you're not learning, you're not developing. And I'm here to tell you that if you don't, you will be in that same spot for as long as you decide to, until you decide to just push yourself out of that zone. And once you push yourself out of that zone, you get into your creative zone of genius, where you begin to be creative and find solutions. And so really get outside of your comfort zone. And then the next thing is something that James mentioned was, you know, connecting with people. So I said, connect with people who are where you want to be, who are on your way. Sometimes you're surrounded by people who may not be on a personal development path, because personal development is personal. I mean, it really is. So it's possible that you're on a personal development path, and then you have friends around you who are happy with where they are. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't bash them for not wanting to develop anymore or grow anymore in that season of their life, but you need to connect with people who are, so that your growth is not stunted, because it is your season. And so you surround yourself with those people. The next thing is making a plan or setting goals. I always say a dream without a plan is a fantasy. So you can fantasize all day about making six figures and, you know, making more money, transitioning to your career of choice, or starting your business, or whatever it is. But if you don't make a plan, then it's just going to be a fantasy, and you're going to look up one day and you won't have time to do the thing that you always wanted to do. And then, of course, you can't make a plan or set a goal, right, without the next thing is taking action. So doing something about it, taking action. And then the last thing that I have on my list is tracking progress, and then doing it all over again, right? Like, so you track your progress from the things that you've accomplished, and then you still maintain self-awareness. You still get out of your comfort zone. You still connect with people who are going where you want to go, or who are where you want to be. You continue to make plans and take action and track progress. And throughout all that, you grow, you develop, and you are kind of like a butterfly, right? Like a transformation. The butterfly starts off as a caterpillar and looks nothing like its end state after the transition, after the transformation. And then the butterfly can fly, the caterpillar can't. And so I hope that throughout going through a personal development process that's ongoing, you have those type of metamorphoses. James, I know I said a whole lot there, but I wanted to just literally, like, I wrote down prior to us linking up, like a few things I wanted to make sure that people took away, because if there's no personal development plan, there's no development, there's no growth, right? Like, and if you don't
Absolutely.
grow, one of the things that you
Hmm.
mentioned is you had to develop in order to get to where you are. I did. I'm still developing because I'm, you know, just quick plug. I started my own business, right? Like, so
Right.
I am learning,
Hmm.
even being an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur mindset is different than that of an employee. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And even
Absolutely.
a leadership. Thankfully, I have leadership experience. In my current role in the organization I work for, because that leadership mentality is also like ownership mentality. It's a switch in the mind to where, from waiting for somebody to tell you to do something to owning it and saying,
Hmm.
what do I need to do? I'm on this path to get better. So in your personal development journey, James, what did you have to do differently, and what do you do differently now, like with your maybe your days, your mornings, or outside activities that you do in order to make sure that you grow and develop?
Well, no, that's a great point, because I think that, for the audience out there, for those who may not, fully understand what you just gave, is that the successful people do things different than the unsuccessful people. And so if you want different, you have to do different.
Mm-hmm.
And to do different, you have to be different and think different. And so in my journey, I had a routine of just not necessarily getting up early in the morning, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so now that's in my routine, getting up early. But even in that routine is really understanding, okay, what is it that I'm doing in that routine? Obviously I read, I study. In the personal development side of things, there's 6 things that I make sure each day that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. So one is a personal development, right? And so within personal development, there's subtext like communication, leadership, how to develop a friendship, or how to be a servant, whatever that may be within that personal development plan. So that's one that I personally work on. The second one is attitudes. What is my attitude? Do I have a winner attitude? Do I have a loser attitude? Do I have a positive mental attitude? Do I have a negative mental attitude? These are the things that I think that in the mind, as I'm going and as I'm moving towards the mark and the goal as a business owner, as a career development coach, that attitudes are very, very important, because people can feel the energy that you have based upon your attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one. That's the second one. The third one are mindsets. What mindsets are we developing? What mindsets is it that I'm developing? The type of mindset, like, okay, a champion mindset, a winner mindset, because again, these are the things that I had to do different in order for me to be different and to make impact, or make the impact that I'm looking for out in the world. And then the other is leadership. What kind of leader is it that I want to become? Because it's not necessarily what you do, Shara. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's all business owners. There's business owners all over the world. But the question that was posed to me by a mentor is, it's not about you being a business owner. It's about what type of business owner do you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be a impactful business owner, or do you just want to be a business owner that just does things for selfish gains? So I work on that on a day-to-day basis, right? Is my leadership. But obviously the fourth one is character. Who are you when no one's looking? What is
Wow.
the integrity? What
Mm-hmm.
about self-respect? What about those things? Because for me, it's not about what you do, it's about who you are and what you're becoming. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about who I am as a business owner than I am as a father. Because behind the scenes, that's what's going to matter the most. That's the amount of impact that I'm going to have, is about who I'm becoming. So character plays a huge role in that, right? But then number five is finances. What are you doing with your finances? Being financially acute, as I would say, to really being disciplined, Now, again, this is my personal development plan. This is not for everybody else, right? So that's important because I really believe being a good steward over the things that God has blessed me with is very, very important to me, right? And then and obviously my sixth one, I actually forgot my sixth one here, but those are the areas that I'm really hitting on a day-to-day basis on the personal development plan to really get myself outside the box to be the kind of leader that I've been called to be, to make the kind of impact. And that's the focus that I have on the personal development side.
That is so good. One thing that I want to circle back on is the character piece.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I want to focus back on that character piece is because what you said is so powerful. Who you are is who you are when no one's watching. And I want to add to that and say, who you are is who you are, no matter where you work or what position you're in. If
Mm-hmm.
you have character and integrity, you can advance wherever you were at. I gave the story of how, I worked at White Castle and I took pride in how I followed the framework for putting the burgers on the grill. And I was excited. We actually had customers that would come in every day to get coffee at the same time every morning. I learned all those customers' names, and then I learned what breakfast sandwich they got to eat. And some of them would come in, and I would be so excited that I would begin to make their drink before they even got to the register. I would begin to make their breakfast sandwich before they got to the register because I remembered uh, that how Mr. Pete got his coffee, or how Mr. Jim got his coffee, or whatever, or how they got their sandwich. If they wanted, the egg to be scrambled or runny or whatever, I remember those things, and they were so thrilled and so excited that somebody remembered their name, that somebody remembered, how they took their coffee or their breakfast sandwich, and
Right.
they were coming into a fast food place. And so that was my character. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you circle back to who you are, you're not going to change if you get a better position. You're not.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna do better just because you're making more money, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to get yourself together where you're at character
Mm-hmm.
wise, so that trickles into wherever you are. You carry that type of presence with you, and so people know you for being behind the scene. I heard somebody say something about, like, if you're a janitor, you better be the best janitor and own those floors and feel like nobody needs to mess up my floors. Because if you have that attitude as a janitor, which nothing's wrong with any of these roles, so don't even think that something's wrong with a janitor or fast food or warehouse or whatever. It's all about what you want. But that character is so important, and you could you can advance with the right character and the right personal development and
Mm-hmm.
own your own janitorial service, right? Like if you wanted to.
Right.
And so I just wanted to drill in on that character piece because I think it's so important. And as we
Mm-hmm.
kind of segue, James, to almost a close, just talking about we talked about our growth, our experience so far, and the mindset shift. And I wanted to kind of touch on the mindset shift a little bit because I know for me, as I developed, we both had something in common, James, right? Like we both came to the moment where we felt like in our career, we want more. We want
Mm-hmm.
something different. We want to
Absolutely.
fulfill purpose. We
Right.
and guess what? We want more money. And
Right.
so, and so you
It's
don't get
always.
more money by giving less effort. You don't get more money by doing less. You get more money by
Yeah.
doing more.
Right.
I hear the saying, what is it? People get paid more money based off of the problem that they're able to solve and the conflict they're able to resolve. So you get
Mm-hmm.
the more you can solve, the more you can resolve, the more money theoretically that you make. Now, me being an
Absolutely.
entrepreneur now, I'm hoping that I'll be able to, in my other endeavors, make more money residually, not by having to quote unquote solve huge problems every day with my time, but be able to, you know, automate some of the things that I do in order to help other people. But anyway, that's a side note there.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about the growth, the experience, the mindset shift, we had that whole process. We thought about, that we wanted more money. And I wanted to make a statement that something that I realized that everyone gets paid what they believe they should get paid. Like the salary that we make is because it reflects what we feel about ourselves, not anybody else. Because if you think about anything that you really, really, really want in life, I don't care who you are, where you came from, you find a way to do it, not an excuse. And I know this because I came from nothing. I was in foster care. I moved, by the time I was 12, I had lived in 5 different homes with different families. And I didn't see anybody growing up who was really successful. My biological father was on heroin. The foster parents that, I had, there was all kind of situations. And so once I was exposed to new ways of doing things, my mind opened. What is the quote that says, a mind stretched by a new idea will never return to its former dimension. And sometimes you haven't seen success in your family or in your life or around you. And so you don't believe that it's in you. But I want to tell you, I'm sure James would tell you that it is in you. And you are where you're at right now because you believe that you should be there. But once that mindset shifts, like it happened for me, and I looked around and I was like, oh, I need to be making at least 6 figures like this. Right. I'm adding value. I'm growing, I'm developing, and it moved from I should be to I must get this. And whenever you have that transformation or that mindset shift where you go from I should to I must, you make a way. So take a moment right here. Like we're going to pause for you and make a declaration of something like I must, just whatever. If it's I must get a personal development plan. I must get a mentor. I must get a coach. I must make 6 figures. I must get to 70,000. I must, exercise more. I must spend more time with my family. Whatever that must is, I want you to declare that right now out loud, because what you say will manifest in your life and you'll find a way to do it. And so just take a moment. We hear you. I mean, we don't hear you, but we hear you in the spirit, right? We hear you. We hear you in the spirit that you're excited, that you're making a declaration, and we are just thrilled about it. James, I want to mention the exciting news that you and I have about what's coming up next month. But do you have any other words before we get into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one last thing I'll leave you with the mindset shift. So for those who are out there struggling, for those who are out there, saying, okay, how do I get there? What is it? Here's one thing that I wish that if being raised up, and it was one thing that my family could just pass down and say, okay, James, here's a quote that I want you to forever have. Here's the quote I will pass down to you. Work harder on thinking smarter.
Ooh.
That is what I'm going to leave with you, is work harder on thinking smarter, because where you're at in life is where you're at in life based upon your capacity. And God will never put on you what he cannot trust to you. And so that's one thing that I know for a fact. And so that's what I just wanted to leave you with before we transition into the other thing. But yeah, that was just food for thought.
I like that. And I'm a quote person too. So of course now I have to follow up. You're not going to one up me, James. No.
No.
Seriously, this is a quote that I live by, and it is, to get what you want, you need to help others get what they want. And so, in addition to what James said about, that mindset shift and working harder at, thinking, what is it? Working harder at thinking smarter?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, working harder at thinking smarter. I think that is huge. And then for me, finding a way to help people get what they want will ultimately get what I want. And so that segues into kind of the surprise that we have for you. Yes. James and I were having a discussion, and we were both talking about just our experience in life, where we came from and how we were able to grow and develop in our careers and increase our income significantly. Um,
Mhm.
and we thought, like, how do we help people get what they really want? Which is, I mean, do you want more money?
Yeah,
Do you want
absolutely.
more, like
Yeah,
more,
I would hope they
more
would want more money.
knowledge, right? Like more knowledge. Do you want to know kind of how to maybe get promoted where you're at? Do you want to, increase your leadership skills maybe and learn how to interview for a higher level role? So we have a training coming up that we are hosting, and it is going to be on November 21st of 2020 of this year, and it's going to be called. I think it's going to be called this, James. I don't know if we determined or not, but the path to your six-figure career.
Yes,
We talked
that's right.
about that.
Yep.
In essence, if the name changes, the essence of it will be that we want to help you get to six figures. We want to teach you a few things. Number one, the mindset of a six-figure earner. Like, what is your mindset? We touched on it a tiny bit here today,
Mhm.
but in the training, we're gonna really talk about that. Get that mindset together. The mindset of a six-figure earner. Also, the mission of a six-figure earner. What activities do you need to do? Like, how do you go about finding that role or preparing for that position in order to be there? Because when you transition to a new level, like we talked about that butterfly, it is a
Mhm.
metamorphosis. It is not the same thing, and you've got to change it. So you need some exposure. You know how I gave my story about how I had to have exposure to new ways of doing things in order to stretch my mind to
Mhm.
propel me to where I was going. And so helping you get that mindset, because your mind is what controls, what you do, right? And
Mhm.
so we're going to be doing like some interactive activities to gain experience. So this is not going to be a training where like we're going to be just talking at you. No, you're going to have some skin in the game, because I believe in getting experience and activities so that you can retain the knowledge that you have. We're going to talk about how to prepare and present during the entire interview process for a six-figure interview. Because as we mentioned, that process is much different than
Right.
interviewing for even a position that's 40 or 50,000, even 60,000. When you get to the six-figure range, the questions are different, the expectations are different. Your presentation is much different, and the delivery is much different. I mean, it is a totally different ballpark. And I don't know if any of the listeners have tried to interview for higher level positions and didn't get it. If you have, this will also be good for you, because we're going to teach you step by step by step. How do you
Mhm.
walk through that process? And guess what? We want to help you get what you want, because that helps us get what we want, which is to make a bigger impact. Um, we're going to talk about the habits of a six-figure earner. We touched on it a little bit, but we want to go a little more in depth at helping you shape your life around being a six-figure earner, because it's an identity. It's not an income. Like, it is you owning and behaving like what we
Mhm.
know you already are, right? And so this course is targeted. I mean, a business owner can take it, but it's really targeted toward the person who wants to advance in your career, and you don't necessarily want to have a business, or maybe you do, but you want to work a job for a while and make some money, and so you want to just get to a higher level in income where you're at, and that's fine. The next thing is, how do you get promoted from within? So maybe you're at a company that you love and you've been stuck in that same position, and you want to find a way to stand out and increase your income. Then you're going to get something, get some great information here. And then we'll have like some live Q&A where you'll actually be able to ask real life questions in person and get answers, not canned answers, not book answers, but answers from real life experience. Because as I mentioned, we are here to help you. That course again is going to be on November 21st from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Is going to be a live. I'm going to call it a workshop. It's a course, but it's a workshop slash training, and
Mhm.
it's going to be valuable. And we're actually pricing it. We were going to have it at $199, which is valued at more than that. But we were trying to keep it in a range where we could get people at that $40,000 to maybe $75,000 salary range who are there now and want to move up to six figures to where it's affordable, because we understand that there's a lot of stuff going on. And so we're pricing it at $99. $99. I mean, literally, that is like,
Wow.
I don't know, James,
Wow.
a couple of trips to Starbucks. I know people that are in that salary range who are stopping at Starbucks every single day, spending $60 a week on coffee.
Yes, alone.
So invest in yourself. James, do you have anything to say? Because I'm excited. I'm speechless. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely.
Say something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's very important. It's very important that that you invest in yourself, just like what Shara was saying. And to that point is, don't undermine yourself. Don't undermine the fact that, hey, this amount of money that you're investing in is not an expense; it's an investment, because you will never depreciate. But anything else that we invest in, Starbucks or other companies, they depreciate at some points, right? But human beings, we never depreciate. And so this is going to be epic. I think is going to be valuable because of the experiences that Shara and I have gone through. The interviews and just the valuable knowledge that will be shared, and just engaging you as well to know what steps that you can take in order for you to now own your career. You can now own your career. No one else is owning your career except you. And I think for me, and I mean, Shara, you can speak to this, I think that's liberating to know that I can own my own career now. I don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, okay, somebody has to deem me worthy. I can literally decide today to move myself into a totally different category, a different financial bracket. Absolutely. So, I mean, if this was me when I was younger, absolutely. And even now to where I'm at, I'm investing even in other courses as well to continue to advance my career as well. So yeah, $100 is absolutely nothing.
Drop in the bucket.
Yeah, come on.
Drops in the bucket.
I know Chad Johnson he's a former Cincinnati Bengals football player. He would buy McDonald's every day. I was like, McDonald's, he would buy like a breakfast. And I mean, he would spend at least like $100 on that a month. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's buying McDonald's every day. Come on. So if he's doing that, I know a lot of us are doing that as well. So $100 is not much. So
$100 is not much. And guess what? Many of you who are working remote are probably saving gas money like me, right? Like where you were driving to work, now you're at home. Invest in yourself. I was on a training yesterday, and one of the speakers said something that I wrote down. She didn't word it exactly like this, but anyway, the essence of it was, when you know your value, you don't negotiate discounts. And when you know your value, right? Like when you get to that point where we talked about, like, not that I should be making more money or I should be making six figures, but I must make it, then you make a way and you link up with people who are where you want to be and who can teach you and who are going to spend time with you to help propel you into where you know you should be. And so right now, by the time this episode goes up, yes, I will have all the course information on my website. So if you want to register, I want you to go to www.sharahutchinson.com, and that's SharahUtchinson.com, and click on the courses tab, and then you'll be able to navigate from there. One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm also going to put into the show notes in the podcast and the show notes of the YouTube channel, my website, and then the direct link to that course so that you can take it. And tell your friends, tell everybody. This, like James said, this is going to be an epic training, and we may offer it in the future, but it's not going to be $99. We literally want to help people get over the hump. We literally, I mean, I hope you can see the sincerity in our faces. Like, it's just genuine. We're compelled to help you have the same experience that we've had. And so I won't try to sell you anymore. I'm not trying to sell you. I'm trying to help you. Really, I really want to help you. And honestly, if you have any questions about career or anything like that, feel free on my website, shoot me a question and I'll answer any questions that you have. If you know, or comment under the podcast or the YouTube video. I watch those and comment. And so literally I'm here for you if you have any questions. James is available as well if you want to connect with him. And so at any rate, we hope that you got some value today from this episode. And we really, really, really hope to see you on the training. And if you're already where you want to be financially, tell somebody you know who may benefit from them, so benefit from it rather, so that they can sign up. All right. Thanks so much. Have a great day.